You're listening to Redman in the House. Hey, it's a podcast. Back again. This is another exciting episode of Redman in the House. Hey, it's a podcast. As always, I am RBV Richard Branson Vickery, joined by the one, the only, the Hall of Famer, Mr. Redman himself.
How you doing today, Richard? It's another exciting day. The rain's over and beautiful afternoon, and we're getting ready to enlighten people on a few pictures and a few other topics today.
Yeah, we're introducing a new little feature into the show. He
Mhm.
said, plenty of sunshine, feeling fine. We're ready to talk little drag racing in a slice of Americana, if you will, there. But
Oh yeah, last week was a big race down in Georgia. The first annual, well, at that facility, Southern Nationals, they revived. NHRA had, and then this week, IHRA's got a big race in Columbus going on. So a lot of racing happened.
each and every week, some big races happening out there nationally. You can check those out. Find those
Mhm.
feeds on social media. You got some television coverage. All the local tracks are getting back to business with some big
Oh
races.
yeah,
I
big
know
bracket
down
racing.
at Edgewater, we're going to kick off this Mother's Day weekend with a little tune-in test on Friday, but then
Mhm.
the Mother Load Saturday. So some fun racing there. Bring mom out to the track. Of course, most tracks take off today. That's the rule of thumb of racing
Oh
across
yeah.
the board in America sports. So we all love our moms. So it's usually no racing on Mother's Day. Hey, but outside of the drag racing world, you guys have a little bit of cool news here at the VFW 7570, where we are coming to you from. You guys are getting involved in a little race game.
Oh yeah, we're going to go down to Lawrenceburg. We're going to help with a charity worker there, the High Limit series, which Kyle Larson is involved in. That's his a sanctioned body, and we're going to donate to that. And I'm also in conference with Miss Maxine as a backup girl and help represent the VFW at a couple races this year. So we're working on that, and we're wanting to get involved a little bit. We can't do the car sponsorship so much, but and charity work and other things we can do, we can get involved in those.
That is awesome. Now, hey, we're going to forgive you here. You're throwing some funds behind the round track.
Mm-hmm.
Because when people always ask me about my racing, I say I like my racing like I like my whiskey, straight.
Straight, yeah, I do too. I like it all. I only thing I'm not into, Rich. I think I never really accustomed was a road course. I'm not big on that. Dirt track, asphalting, drag racing naturally, which I was raised up on. But yeah, I got taste for it all. I can handle all of it a little bit.
Hey, I tell you what was very cool because we just had it this past weekend at Edgewater, and it's only the second year that we've had it, and it is something so unique to our facility. It transforms the entire grounds as we have the autocross and rallycross there.
Oh
So we
yeah.
got two different courses at the track there, and it's so unique though. It's you do have that kind of that road course feel with
Mm-hmm.
the autocross, and then they have fun back by the river, kicking up that dirt
Oh
with the
yeah.
rallycross.
Oh
Such
yeah.
a unique, different event. So it's great.
And
Anything that's got power, that's got wheels,
well, what's
and you
that
got
new
that
thing they're
racing.
doing? Drifting, and that's getting taken off the tracks. Even big tracks are doing that now. That drifting they call it, where they go around in circles some way and lay in rubber. And I don't know how they don't keep getting dizzy, but they keep spinning around, and that's a big deal. Out Vegas, I know Vegas does it big. St. Louis has a deal with it, so that thing's picking up too. Speed, that drifting.
Well, I think the cool part about it is whichever kind of racing is your style, there is a theme across the board in the sport, and that is togetherness,
Oh
bringing
yeah.
people together, fans, crews, drivers, and that's kind of how we really want to jump into this week's episode
Mm-hmm.
of it is and talk about some of those great teams that you've seen over
Mm-hmm.
the years, what's made them so special, and maybe you can give some tips about how teams can support each other and
Mm-hmm.
make that work.
Well, some of the teams I remember. How about the Castrol team? The Castrol team now went from funny car, well, actually top fuel down to super comp, and they had the top fuel car was Ormsby, Gary Ormsby. Force was the funny car. Then they had Pro Stock, I believe, was Larry Morgan, I want to say. Then they had an alcohol dragster was a guy named Bill Barney, and then there was Austin Boy out of state of Washington was the alcohol funny car. Comp car was David Nickens, hell of an engine builder. Everybody knows Nickens racing engines. And then in Super Comp, there was a guy named Rob Slavinsky. We lost him early. Tie him in with my mini celebration. Rob was a strong Super Gas, Super Comp driver. He did a lot of teaching and coaching. He helped Ashley Force when she got into Super Comp.
Wow.
And he was actually from Connecticut, and then he moved more towards the Midwest. And then we lost Rob way too soon. He was, I don't know what we lost him with, but one of the cancer or something. I mean, cancer is bad for all of us, and you just hate to see that going on. But Rob was a good driver. Another team that a lot of people remember, if you came to the Lucas races at Edgewater, we had a team called Ride and Decal. And a guy owned his own decal business out of Illinois. And he sponsored cars. He did Parks, a guy named Parks, who did an alcohol dragster. And then George, I believe, was the first name of the guy that owned it, or Mark. And he owned a business. He got into an alcohol dragster. And then Parks eventually jumped up into Top Fuel with his car, the Ride and Decal car. But they did more of the sportsman, Super Gas, Super Comp, Super Street. They had Carl Root and Super Gas. They had a boy named Ryder in Super Street with a Nova. That car still runs today. A Vogelsang guy's got it called, used to be called Looney Tunes. And then that Ride and Decal helped sponsor it. Tom Harder in Super Gas. Carl Root's daughter, she was in Super Comp with it. God, there was a whole bunch of those cars in the super classes, which was really, really neat. And they went everywhere. And so they stayed in the series for about 2 or 3 years. And then another one for stock and super stock was Jack McCormick. He sponsored a lot of cars in the time. And stock and super stock, he had McElroy, and he had Greg Luniak. He had Frank Parsley, Don Hoban. I can't think of who drove the little Dodge Dakota truck. His wife Judy drove. She drove a big truck.
She's up in the big ride.
Rampage. Yeah, I'm sorry, it was a little Rampage truck a guy drove. There was about 10, 12 of those cars, and they ran everywhere too. They were black with gold leaf with Jack's name on it, Jack McCormick Racing. And Jack sponsored a lot of them, and they went around all over. And a lot of stout drivers in there. McElroy was division director. Greg Luniak was stout. Don Hoban, been division director, division champion, I'm sorry. He was in there. So Parsley won some events. There were some great drivers in that group. So that's about 3 of them off the top of my head that I can think of now for this episode. We don't want to give them all away, so we want to keep that rolling and get your input. My cohort here hasn't told me if we've got any insights, so you can always hit me on my messenger on Facebook if you got something for the show, or hit us on this podcast to get us going and help us out and get my memory going. Because like I said, I got a lot of
I think, as we do have, on every level of the race game, it's especially locally, so many people are looking to help offset the pricing. Mm-hmm. I mean, across the board, no matter where you're at in life, it seems prices are skyrocketing. You and I were having a conversation before we sat down to record today. It's exactly about that. So I think, maybe now more than ever important to gather your resources, gather your reach, your connections as a team, and don't think of it as simple sponsorship. Go out there and look to build business to business networking. Mm-hmm. And what you need to sell when you're asking someone to support your journeys, your adventures into racing is what is their return on investment. Right. So if you can come together with a group of other drivers and crews and family members like that, and come to a business, a restaurant, a bar, something like that, say, hey, we will gladly come out and frequent you. Mm-hmm. Maybe not weekly, but monthly. We'll bring everybody out, or if maybe they're a place that has great events, maybe like karaoke or a trivia night. We'll bring our race team down there to be a part of that. If you got some other special events, maybe we can bring a car out and and show your customers. And there's a lot of exchange you can do to help building some support through your business to business networking. Again, your sponsors essentially for your team.
Right. Well, also uniforms. Now, like Castro being a high dollar team at the time, they had the full blown uniform. And then you had like Ride and Decal, they had the shirts. Jack didn't have a lot. The car said for all of it, with the sponsorship of that. But you'll be surprised. I know all the cars don't get TV coverage, But the fans, with drag racing, you can get in the pits and you wander around, you get to see every car. So somebody's car is getting noticed and the
As you're getting
sponsorship's getting noticed.
as you're getting just not the decals on the car itself. If you
Mhm.
as you're getting visitors in the pits, have a handout with
Mhm.
information available about your partners, your
Mhm.
sponsorship partners, things like that on your tech cards. Take the time under notes to fill something out about those businesses that are sponsoring you, encouraging. Hey, we're brought to you by Joe and Joe's Pizza Shack down,
Mhm.
and highlight there because believe me, as an announcer, we are looking to get more engaged and entertained and share that information. So I know a lot of times that tech card, it seems just like it's a bother for you. Want to get your information, get your car number in, just what you absolutely need. Take the time to do the extras.
Right.
And you can let those other businesses that you're partnering with know each and every time one of our cars makes a run down that track, that announcer is going to give a mention over
Mhm.
the loudspeakers to potentially hundreds of fans in the stands there, and they're going to hear that message.
Well, I know, Rich said roundy round's not his forte, but in these dirt cars, those announcers, every time that car number 47, whoever it is, comes out, they'll mention the driver's name and bang, 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 they're naming off the sponsors of that team. And it's pretty interesting because I mean every time that car hits the track, so every time it gets on TV, bang, it's getting hit. And like Rich says, I mean, you get mentioned at the tower, like you said, Joe's Pizzeria, whoever it may be, that's a plug for Joe. And one thing I like, I don't knock anybody, but the IHRA's new deal, Speed Sport, they cover every pair of cars. So it don't matter what class you're in, you're going to be on TV. Fox, being bigger and on a more restraint, do the pros mostly, and down through alcohol once in a while. But on Speed Sport, every car, super street, stock, I don't care what class, fuel altered, is going down the track. So they're getting mentioned and the car is being seen. So sponsorships are key and you want to show people the best buck, best hit for their dollar, per se. And that will help if they really see something's going to come out of it.
Hey, I really tell the drivers like that, try to, give them some tips, things like
Mm-hmm.
that, share my experiences, my 30 plus years in, drumming up interest and support in events for teams and such like that. Hey, present yourself is a big deal because you are a big deal and you'll get big returns on that.
Right. And it's like the decals you all want. That's not as big as it used to be, the contingency program. Well, that little old decal you got on there, say from Castro Oil or Quaker State or whoever, that could be a case of oil coming from Quaker State because that all gets PA'd or $100 for winning the eliminator. That's the extra money, bonus programs, they call it. So pay off. And then some of your sponsors might say, hey, you get that thing in the winner's circle, I'm going to kick in a couple $100 or tank of gas, whatever it may be to help you.
And I can sit and talk about sponsorship, partnership opportunities all day. Even with that, if someone from your team makes it through that winner circle, have a banner ready to go
Mm-hmm.
with your partners, your sponsors on there. So it is featured in those photos that the tracks are going to share to their thousands of social media followers as well.
Oh yeah.
Any little opportunity to spread that good word. The key is to sell return on investment to your potential partners there.
And I tell you, it's well worth it. And to see the teams, and they'll tell you, you talk to some of these guys that travel the road, they'll tell you without that little extra help, it's hard to get up and down that road. We all know that. We know what the price of that gasoline is out there, let alone that diesel. And it makes it tighter on getting to a race. Well, I was going to run 10 races. Look like I'm only going to run 8 or 7, because of the price. But if you got that sponsorship to help you get up and down the road, that turns around and helps, get you through the track.
Well, Redman, I say let's go back to a time where gas wasn't so addictive.
Oh,
Let's take that cruise down memory lane. We got two rides
right.
ready to go here.
Well, today we got a little 65, 66 fastback Mustang. Was a 289 car, the high performance one. Guy brought it in there and ran C stock. And the reason I don't know, the car was really sounding neat when I took the picture. Don't know who it was, and I almost thought I did because we have a gentleman that raced one at Edgewater, comes to our cruising, his named Nick McSwain. And I told him, I said, I think I got a picture of your old car. And he said, no, that's not mine, but it's almost just like it. And we got talking and laughing about it. But that car was neat. And those cars when they first come out, that little 289 fastback was a stout little piece when back
You
in the
running on
day.
a spare tire?
He's running on regular slicks of some kind. But look at he's back like where the burnout box would be back in the old day. And there you see the background in the back, there. But yeah, a lot of these I didn't know who that was. I thought I did, but it wasn't Nick's car. So I was hoping to have that for Nick. Next one's a Willys, was a nice Willys blue one. Not much information on him. Another car that ran Edgewater occasionally. Edgewater used to get a ton of Willys's and Anglias back in the day. I loved them cars. It raced down there. I think that was a B gas car there at the time. And what was neat, Rich, back in the day, a lot of guys didn't like you to write on their plexiglass windows, right? The letters. So if you look on some of these pictures back in the day, they put it on the rear tire, A/G, A gas, and then like say you were the first one in the gate, you'd be A gas 1. You were second,
I'm just
A gas 2.
imagining Doc up in our tower trying to look down, trying to find that number. He'd be having
Oh
right
yeah,
now.
well the tower was a lot
I was
closer
going to
back
say,
then.
that's
So,
changed quite a bit.
oh yeah, and you look at them days. Like I said, this was spring weather. Of course, now the trees are full bloom. But I tell you, it was so neat to go down there in the early years and cars would be howling down through that holler like they do, and those were the great days. I tell you, it's hard. It's why we want to keep it alive. A lot of the kids, I tell people all the time, we don't learn history, and I don't know why we don't teach it if they don't want us to know or what. But I think you have to know history to get to where you're going or where you want to be, and without that, we keep stumbling along making dumb mistakes, I guess we call it. But yeah, how drag racing came and evolved, and these people you figure paid their money every week to go down and run their car and just have a blast, and we're still that way, only it's a little more evolved now. So, but yeah, that's a couple out of the past there that were good and have no names. If you do, send them in. We'd love to give them a little plug. That's what we do, plug everybody, which will lead me into our mini celebration.
I'd say our mini
Yes.
celebration, our salute to the unsung
Right.
heroes of the drag race game. And we got a heck of a list right now.
Right. I got a few. I'm sure most everybody's not going to know, but think about them, and they were great people. First one's Lex Dudas. Lex Dudas, Division II director. He was the second Division II director in NHRA history, following Buster Couch, the legendary Buster. And Lex was a great guy. He was married into the family that owned Maple Grove at the time.
Okay.
And Lex became the director, and he was such a hoot to work for. When I got working in pit control, he took me on, and he had so much faith and trust in me and the guys to get everything parked. And he came to me in Atlanta one time when they redid Atlanta, and he says, Redman, we're going to get everybody in here. And I told him, I said, Lex, if we don't get everybody in here, you can chew my butt. And he didn't have to. We got them all in there, got them stuffed in and set up. And he always had faith in us and let us go, get everybody parked, everybody be happy. But if you needed something, he had your back. He was a great guy, and he was a fair director, Lex was. Second is a guy we lost about a year ago or so, a great super stock. I mentioned his name earlier. He came out of Michigan and wound up moving out to California, Greg Luniak. And Greg, he started out in the Mopars. He ran like an A and B automatic CUDA with Jack. And then when he went out west, he got into Chevrolets, and he had a little Chevy 2 wagon. Ran super stock L automatic and K. And Greg won a big national event with that car. And we lost him about a year ago to a heart attack. And him and his wife, such great people. And Greg was a trooper. He'd always speak to me. We'd talk about the days when he was back in Michigan racing, and really a good guy. The next guy is, a lot of people won't know it all, but was one of the original division directors out of 7, Bernie Partridge. Bernie and his wife were instrumental. She ran the tower. He announced and he controlled the tower. Each director back in that day had a job at a national event. There was only like starting out 4 national events, and then it went to 6. They still came to every event. Each director had a position, like one to be in charge of TAC, one to be in charge of pit control or 2, one to be in charge of the tower, one to be in charge of race control, which would be what comes in the lanes and when they're running. One would be kind of like a floater wherever you need to be at. But Bernie was great. One of the original announcers would usually do the pro cars. It was usually him, Dave McClellan, and Steve Evans when I started. Steve would do most of the sportsmen. Dave would be in between, and then Bernie would do the pros. But Bernie, he was a hard guy to get to know, California guy, but he was a good guy, him and his wife, great people. Next one is out of the Indy area. Love this guy. He was a fireman by trade, and his life was a big Ford man. Round up running the Chevy 2 in the Endo and Super Street. Stout racer named Steve Dillman. His family raced, some of them still race to this day. But Steve ran Fords for years in stock eliminator. I think the Hatfield Ford was one of them, a Torino, and he was sponsored by somebody else at one time. And then he used to run with Bob Gooden a lot when Bob was running the sportsman ranks with his Mustangs. But Steve patronized Edgewater a lot on a weekly stock eliminator show. He'd come down and see us a lot. And my last one is Russell Fox. For all you Harrisonites and Tri-State fans back in the day, Russell Fox was a main tech man for Tri-State for a while. Russell had a Willys back in the day. Russell could run anything. Great engine builder, true ambassador to the sport. And Russell was key. He had a purple Willys, which was a bad, bad boy. And he used to work at the speed shop or help down there. He had sponsorship at the old speed shop out of Miami Town, which was called Henderson Auto Parts.
Oh.
If anybody remembers that, the big old building still sits on the corner of Miami Town. But Russell,
Right there at the
great guy.
bridge?
Yeah, right there before you cross the bridge, the big white square building.
Well, not, see, when I was growing up, real quick, got there. When I was growing up, I remember there was an auto parts shop in there, but
Yep.
there's also an arcade.
Yeah, well, originally it was Henderson Auto Parts, and they sponsored a Chevrolet. I think I might have a picture coming up. If I don't, I remember the car. It was 55 that ran modified. It was pretty bad. But Russell, he was stout on his Willys, and he was good. Russell didn't run a lot of the national events. He'd run Indy, but he's basically tri-state, and he'd come down to Edgewater occasionally. But that's 5 this week of the great guys and gals that built the sport, and you just can't say enough about these folks. I can't, So next week we'll have us some more. And
I say I think it's great. Each and every week you have a great list, and again, it's those unsung heroes. Maybe a lot of people, the masses, the general, fans might not know, but these are the people that made the sport go.
Oh yeah, well, Ray Nash out there, if he gets on the podcast, he knows Russell. He'll remember Russell back in the day, and there'll be some others that'll remember Russell. And then, like I say, a lot of guys will remember Greg. Of course, a lot of guys will know Lex being the director of 2 for years. And then he was general manager. Lex was for a while at Indy. And then he was general manager back at Maple Grove back in the day. And also Dillman, a lot of guys will remember the Dillmans. And great, great, great family racing. And we just want to keep them with us. It's like I say, I think we live life so fast, Rich, I think sometimes, and we don't sit down some days. I know I do at home now, the older I get. And you kick back and you go, God, I remember him. Man, what a guy, and we don't do that enough to reflect the people we know. I know it's hard to do with this hectic life we got to live now.
Like a little good motto to officially go home on. Hey, the race game is fast, but sometimes you just need to slow down.
Oh, yeah. And I'm going to give you a little snug on a new one we're going to have. I'm going to bring up how about the husband and wife combos that actually race, not the wives that are in the pits. This is the girls that rode with they had a car and the husband had a car. And just to give you Edgewater folks a couple, how about John, Hassie, and Kathy? And I think John still races, don't he? The white, yeah.
Yep.
And she had a Duster, and they'd race in the brackets every week faithfully at Edgewater there, back to back. And John's won a lot of money. John's stout, in the day, and that's still the same car that Swinger is.
I already got it. Maybe we'll call that segment "Lovers Lanes."
There you go. And then I got one for you too before we go. I can't remember Mr. Stone's name, but his wife was Louise, and he ran an old police interceptor car, black and white, and she had a 66, 67 Ford Fairlane, stock as you can get from the car lot, and she would run red station wagon, and she'd run in the street. Is it still street, the slow one? Yeah, he'd run in heavy, and she'd run in street. The Stones, they were Edgewater.
Yes, he was just run sportsman.
Oh yeah, they'd run 2 different classes. John would run pro. I think Kathy would run heavy. So yeah, they were neat down there. That was some of the Edgewaters, husband and wives that raced down there at the time.
We're looking for that, our Lovers Lane segment.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, we were talking a lot about teams today. We're thankful that you are a part of our team. We thank you for joining us here on this episode. So I am RBV, Richard Bronson Vickery. He's Redman. We'll see you on the next go around of Redman in the House.
See you next one.
It's a podcast.